On this Wednesday night, it's fight night in Canada. The five-party leaders square off in a debate. Who's leading the race now? Conservatives are consolidating behind Erin O'Toole as the best chance to beat Justin Trudeau. As the Conservatives put a price on their promises, vicious storms slammed southern Ontario.
The thunder and lightning started and then downpour.
The widespread destruction. The trial into the 2015 Paris terror attacks finally starts.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Robin Gill.
It's go time in Gatineau, Quebec. Tonight, 5 federal party leaders will go head-to-head in the first of 2 official debates, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. New polling from Ipsos shows the Liberals and Conservatives locked in a tight race. What happens in tonight's French debate and tomorrow's in English could prove critical. On the stage tonight, Justin Trudeau, Erin O'Toole, Jagmeet Singh, Yves-Francois Blanchet, and Annamie Paul. Maxime Bernier of the People's Party was not invited. Organizers say his party did not meet the criteria. We'll have more on what to watch for in a moment, but first to Eric Sorensen with tonight's top story on where the race stands heading into the debate.
He's not a runaway winner in this election race, but Erin O'Toole and the Conservatives have staked out a narrow lead that did not exist before the campaign began. A lead built on attacking one man and one party.
Mr. Trudeau misleading people and saying whatever he wants to say to try and get reelected.
And Justin Trudeau sees a clear and present danger for his party, O'Toole and the Conservatives.
You have to be honest with Canadians. But that's something that we're seeing is increasingly difficult for Mr. O'Toole to do.
For months, Trudeau had the advantage of dominating public life during the pandemic. But an election campaign levels the playing field, and the Conservative leader has gained ground.
We've seen that the Conservative Party has broken out a bit. The Conservatives are consolidating behind Erin O'Toole as the best chance to beat Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party.
Among decided voters, Ipsos finds Conservatives have moved 3 points ahead of the Liberals, 35 to 32, with the NDP further back at 21. But would a narrow Conservative lead translate into victory on election night? In the 2019 election, the Conservatives beat the Liberals by more than a full percentage point in the popular vote and still lost. The Conservatives won 121 seats, the Liberals 157 seats, 36 more seats. So the Conservatives have to flip a lot of ridings in order to win. The Conservatives are now running even with the Liberals in Ontario and could flip seats north of Toronto. Then there's Quebec, prone to massive swings. The NDP's orange wave in 2011, the Liberals' comeback in 2015, and the Bloc Québécois revival in 2019. Yves-Francois Blanchet and the BQ could shake up the race again. Ipsos says the BQ has caught up with the Liberals in Quebec, and the Conservatives are third but doing better than before. The NDP is lagging.
We've seen that the approach of Mr. Trudeau has failed.
For the NDP, the Liberals are also the target. The New Democrats are running first in BC, but in many ridings in the country, they could take votes away from the Liberals where Conservatives could win.
In order to consolidate the progressive vote, the Liberals have to get some of those NDP voters to move back. There seems to be a little bit of a wobble right now on the NDP side.
The Liberal train is also a little wobbly in a race that has become close and unpredictable. But one original destination for the Liberals, a majority government, is an endpoint that is looking increasingly distant. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
That is where the race is at right now, but there are still 12 days until the election, and a lot can happen in that time. For more on the party strategies for tonight's debate, let's bring in Mike Couteur in Gatineau, Quebec. Mike, this has been a big gamble for Justin Trudeau calling this election. Is he in a political fight for his career in his home province?
Yeah, he really is, Robin, when you consider that there are 78 seats up for grabs in the province of Quebec, and that's what a lot of this debate will be speaking to, that province and those voters, trying to convince them to vote for each of these party leaders. Expect a combative Trudeau. That is what we saw in the TVA debate, that there's a first French language debate that we saw last week. But at the same time, this is a delicate dance for him. He also has to look prime ministerial while taking shots at others who are gaining on him, especially in Quebec. Expect him to aim a lot of his attacks at Yves-Francois Blanchet and for him to return in kind.
As Eric mentioned, we saw the rise of the Bloc Québécois in the last election, and the party's popularity appears to be increasing this time around. Is tonight going to be a showdown between Yves-Francois Blanchet and Trudeau?
Yeah, it really will be. Those are sort of the two main on the card here. Expect Blanchet to continue his attacks on Trudeau for calling this election. He said, and he continues to say, look, the Bloc Québécois was more than happy to work with the Liberals and continue to make Parliament function. And why did Mr. Trudeau decide that he needed an election? Trudeau will respond by saying that, look, the Bloc Québécois is simply a protest party in Quebec, and they really don't get a lot done, and they just like to complain a lot. Obviously, that's not how voters look at it when you consider what the seat totals were during the last election, but those are the two main ones on this fight card tonight.
And finally, what's the strategy going to be for the Conservative and NDP leaders to try to score political points?
Yeah, for Erin O'Toole, it really does seem like it's sort of steady as she goes. Make sure that he proves that he is a viable option. He will have questions to answer. One of the big ones that the Bloc leader, Yves-Francois Blanchet, will be throwing at him is specifically around the daycare deals that Trudeau did ink with a lot of the provinces, including Quebec. What will he do with that $6 billion deal for daycare in Quebec that was supposed to be guaranteed? No strings attached money. He is not answering that question. Gun control is also a big issue in Quebec, and that is something that we've seen O'Toole flounder a little bit on. And why did he flip-flop on it, and why did he have that amendment to his platform? As for Singh, keep in mind that he needs to make some sort of a splash here. In the last debate, the TVA debate, he really seemed like he was on the sidelines. The people in the NDP camp were saying, look, you have to understand, French is his third language behind English and Punjabi, but by the same token, he does want to have some sort of an impact, potentially a 2011 orange wave in Quebec, which does seem relatively out of reach, but he will try and focus his attacks not only on Trudeau, but also on Yves-Francois Blanchet.
Mike Couteur in Gatineau, Quebec. Thanks, Mike. And you can watch tonight's French debate online at globalnews.ca. Live coverage begins at 8 p.m. Eastern. The Conservatives are finally revealing the cost of their campaign promises. They released their platform in the first days of the campaign, but the Tories face growing pressure to show an item-by-item price tag for all their proposals. And late this afternoon, they did. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, has been crunching the numbers. David?
Well, Robin, the Conservatives released this costing in a bit of an odd way via email and a technical briefing conference call just 2 hours before tonight's debate. And leader Erin O'Toole, he was not available. He did not speak about it or take questions about it.
Now, only the Conservatives and the Liberals have released a costed platform so far. We're still waiting for the NDP, so we can put those two side by side. The Liberals plan $78 billion in new spending, including an extra $13 billion in spending this year. The Conservatives have a plan to spend an extra $51 billion over 5 years, but they will spend an extra $30 billion this year. Now, the latest deficit forecast for this year comes in around $138 billion. Under the Liberal plan, the deficit would be $19 billion bigger than that, or $157 billion. And the red ink would really flow with the Conservatives. Their plan would have the deficit grow by $30 billion this year to come in at $168 billion. Now, the Conservatives say the deficit in their plan falls to $25 billion by 2026. The Liberals say their plan has the deficit at $32 billion by then. One big difference, the Liberals tabled no plan to balance the budget, and the Conservatives say the budget will balance in a decade. Now, the Tories say they will not have to cut anything. Instead, the budget will balance because the government will enjoy revenues from an economy that is growing much more rapidly than forecasters like the Parliamentary Budget Office or the Bank of Canada are predicting. Most economic analysts anticipate our economy to grow by an average of 1.7 per year over the next decade. The Tories are banking on nearly twice that, 3% a year. And that introduces a high level of uncertainty.
We would want you to plan on something that you have a greater likelihood that you can count on it. Because if the money doesn't show up and you spent it either through a tax expenditure or a program expenditure, then what?
So while the Liberals will introduce new taxes, mostly on the wealthy and on banks, there are no new taxes from the Conservatives because the Conservatives are banking solely on economic growth to find the money for their programs. In other words, the Conservatives believe, you guessed it, the budget will balance itself. Robin.
David Akin in Ottawa. Thanks, David. Our coverage of the campaign includes a big road trip across Canada. And tomorrow, Global National is broadcasting from the Maritimes. Donna Friesen joins us now from there. Hi, Donna.
Hi there, Robin. We are in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, stunned by the beauty here. The Liberals won 10 of the 11 seats in Nova Scotia in 2019, and if support for them is softening, we'll begin to see the first signs of that on election night here in Nova Scotia. We're talking politics, healthcare, housing affordability, and we'll have an amazing story about the connection between the man who invented the telephone and the first flight of an airplane here in Canada. That's tomorrow, Global National from Cape Breton. Robin?
All right, thanks, Donna. And from Nova Scotia, Global National will head to Quebec City and Brampton, Ontario, just ahead of election night. Turning to the pandemic, Nova Scotia is inching closer to getting back to normal. The province will move into phase 5 of its reopening plan on September 15th. It means lifting all restrictions on masking, physical distancing, and gatherings, both indoor and outdoor. But border measures will stay in place.
Anyone entering from outside Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and PEI who is not fully vaccinated will continue to be required to isolate and be tested.
And starting October 4th, Nova Scotia will require proof of full vaccination for people 12 and older to access non-essential services and activities. That includes dining out and fitness facilities. Nearly 72% of eligible Nova Scotians are fully vaccinated. New public health restrictions are in effect in parts of the Northwest Territories to help curb an outbreak in its homeless population. The measures affect the capital and 3 other communities. Outdoor gatherings are restricted to 50 people, indoor gatherings to 25. The order is in effect for 14 days. At least 19 people are infected with COVID-19. 10 healthcare and support workers have also tested positive. The Territory's chief public health officer is strongly recommending against non-essential travel in and out of the communities impacted. One of the biggest trials in the history of France is underway. 20 men are accused of participating in the 2015 Paris attacks that have become known as France's 9/11. 130 people were killed and hundreds injured. The trial is expected to be the longest ever, set to last 9 months. The judge will hear from close to 1,800 witnesses and victims. More than 300 lawyers are involved. It's all happening in a specially constructed courtroom in Paris that cost about $15 million to build. Here's Mike Armstrong with a look at the long-awaited trial and its eventful first day.
As painful as the trial will be, survivors turned up at the Paris courthouse hoping for answers. They may have lived through the attack, but they want to understand it.
Le mot qui me vient, c'est enfin, en fait.
At last, we are here, this survivor says. This will help us to move on. It's been nearly 6 years since a series of synchronized attacks, November 13th, 2015. Gunmen with suicide vests stormed the Bataclan concert hall, 6 bars and restaurants, as well as a soccer stadium during a match. The so-called Islamic State would claim responsibility. 130 people were killed.
Le 13 novembre 2015.
The French justice minister says that day plunged all of France into horror and that the French justice system must now stand up. Well, that is happening in a specially built and massive courtroom. It was actually constructed in the foyer of a courthouse that dates back to the 14th century. 20 men are on trial, 14 in person, 6 in absentia. They're believed to be dead, but it can't be confirmed. Now, most of the men are accused of playing a role in organizing the attacks, but not all. Salah Abdeslam is believed to have been one of the gunmen, but his explosive vest never detonated. Whether it was a malfunction or nerves, only he knows. Abdeslam escaped and was eventually arrested in Belgium after 4 months on the run. In court for day 1, he was the most aggressive and vocal of the accused. When the judge asked his occupation, he said he had left all professions to become a soldier of the Islamic State. The judge responded with a joke, saying basically he'd heard it was an interim position. Abdeslam would go on to say he was being treated like a dog and ranted until his microphone was cut off.
J'étais assez surpris.
Bataclan survivor Thierry Mallet says he was surprised by how much seeing Abdeslam in person hit him, but that he's not scared and will face him in court. Now, the high profile of this trial has the country on high alert, and it's likely to last. A verdict isn't expected until late May of next year. Mike Armstrong, Global News.
A Russian government minister who once served in President Vladimir Putin's security detail has died in the Arctic while trying to save the life of a film director. Yevgeny Zinichev headed the high-profile emergencies ministry since 2018. The ministry says the 55-year-old died during a training exercise. The exact circumstances of his death remain unclear. Officials say he jumped from a cliff in an apparent rescue attempt. Ferocious storms tear through parts of southwestern Ontario. Coming up, the trail of damage people are now forced to clean up. Plus, powerful goals, America's plan to rely on solar energy, and a towering figure of racism removed.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
This is a look at the debris that was strewn about at a farm in Lucknow, Ontario, just north of Goderich. Residents are spending the day cleaning up. Yesterday, severe storms moved through parts of southern Ontario, prompting Environment Canada to issue tornado warnings for some areas.
God, those sparks are getting on the car now.
One Toronto family woke up to this. A tree branch had fallen on a power line. The line then hit their car and sparked a fire. Luckily, no one was injured.
I was quite worried last night, to be honest, that there may be an explosion or something like that, because there was a lot of water out here, and then with the flame coming off the wire, who knows what could have happened.
Hydro One says power has been restored to more than 65,000 customers affected by last night's storm. Crews continue to work on other hard-hit areas, particularly along the shore of Lake Huron. In Mexico, at least one person was killed when a powerful earthquake struck near Acapulco last night. The magnitude 7 quake was felt hundreds of miles away in Mexico City. It struck just before 9 p.m. and nearly 100 aftershocks were reported before dawn. The quake triggered widespread blackouts, landslides, and several gas leaks. No major damage to buildings has been reported. Solar strategy still ahead, the bright plan for renewable energy in the U.S. One of America's largest Confederate monuments has come down. The 6-meter bronze statue of General Robert E. Lee was removed from a pedestal in Virginia. It overlooked the Capitol for more than a century, but in recent years had become a target of protesters looking to remove symbols of racism. The monument was broken into pieces, which will be put into storage. The graffiti-covered pedestal will stay for now. The Biden administration has released an ambitious renewable energy plan. A new report from the U.S. Department of Energy shows that by 2035, solar energy has the potential to power 40% of America's electricity and employ as many as 1.5 million people without raising electricity costs for consumers. That goal is contingent on Congress passing legislation that prioritizes and supports renewable energy, as well as the widespread adoption of solar power. It currently accounts for about 3% of the U.S. electricity supply. Britney Spears is another step closer to taking full control of her life. In an unexpected move, her father filed to end the court-ordered conservatorship that has managed the singer's life and money for 13 years. The 39-year-old has tried to remove her father from her case twice in the last 2 years, claiming that her conservatorship was abusive. Jamie Spears took over his daughter's affairs after she went through a mental health crisis in 2008. He denies any allegations of abuse and says he only wants what's best for his daughter. The decision now rests with a judge. And that is Global National for this Wednesday night. I'm Robin Gill. Tonight, Your Canada is near Lloydminster, Saskatchewan. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in tomorrow when Donna Friesen will broadcast from Baddeck, Nova Scotia. And I'll see you again this weekend. Have a great night.